Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to begin at noon. Just wanted to let you know that we are on. All right, everyone, we're right at noon, and we already see we've got a lot of people online, so we want to go ahead and respect everyone's time and go ahead and start. So, hello, my name is Lisette Mariner. I am the Executive Director of the APA, and I'm pleased to welcome you to today's webinar, Preparing for Pre- Be Prepared Be better prepared for your next inspection. Perfectly timed as we head into our upcoming inspection season. This webinar counts towards your continuing education credit. If you're looking for additional credits, be sure to explore our other webinars available on our channel. We also hope that you'll join us for our spring workshop, April 23rd through the 26th in Charlotte, North Carolina, where you can earn up to 6 additional CE credits. We'll be sharing more details soon, so watch your emails. Thank you for joining us today, and a special thank you to our producer members who are presenting. If you're joining us via YouTube, you may submit questions through the YouTube chat or by emailing info@archprecast, that's ARCHPRECAST.org. We'll remind you throughout the webinar how to submit questions. You'll see it on the ticker on the bottom of the screen. It's now my pleasure to introduce today's presenters, Jessica and Brian Valancourt from Northern Design Precast in Loudoun, New Hampshire. Brian is the plant manager and is celebrating 28 years with Northern Design this year. Jessica works as in project management and has been with the company for 19 years. Together, this dynamic duo leads Northern Design's preparation for plant inspections and keeps them on track. Thank you, Jessica and Brian. We're glad to have you with us today.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Wanted to go through and just kind of show you what we do to prepare for plant inspections, and hopefully some of the items might help you with your next plant inspection. So this is based on a wet pour producer. I know that there's other areas within the APA, such as the dry temp and GFRC and UHPC, that may require items that are not included in this webinar, but this is just based off what we are required as a wet pour producer. We find that it's important to start off on the right foot with the inspector. We try to have everything ready at the beginning of the inspection month. We want to make sure we make the inspector feel welcomed. And we try to set them up with their own spot for a few hours, someplace that they can just keep all of their paperwork, something if they need to keep coming back to the desk or so have you, they have their own little spot set up for them. And we try to provide them with everything they need in one setting, so that also leads to minimal disruption throughout your day. If they have everything they need, there's there's really no need to disrupt you or your staff. And I think the one key thing is to remember is that we're inviting them into our plants as an APA producer. They're not coming to as our enemy. They're here because we invited them. I just tried to put it together a list of some of the items that your inspector is going to review throughout their visit, and then we'll go through each one. But your documentation and your record keeping, they're going to want to see a roster of your certified personnel. They're going to want to review a shop drawing and a calculation package. They're going to want to see your sample and mix design procedure. During their visual inspection, they'll want to look at form setup, your production and pouring process, your reinforcement and in-bed placement, your QC procedures, your testing equipment and procedures, how your product is handled and stored in your facility, your finishing and shipping procedures, your storage of your aggregates and rebar, and overall your plant housekeeping and cleanliness. So we like to set our inspector up with the paperwork side of things first. This allows them to get familiar with your plant and your process before they go and tour the rest of your plant. And it's also what takes the longest for them is going through and making sure you have all of your certificates and qualifications. So we usually set them up with this, let them take their time, and then they'll do the visual inspection. So I keep 4 binders, 4 3-ring binders for the first 4 items listed. So I keep a master book of material certifications. I keep a book of certified personnel credentials. We keep a book of the QC manual, our safety manual, and then required ASTMs. And then the 4th binder is our compressive strength and testing history. Other than that, they'll want to see your sample and mix design procedure, how you submit your samples, track your approvals, and disperse your mix designs throughout your plant. They'll want to see a current shop drawing and calculation package, and then along with the plant logs. And we'll go through each one. But I try to have this material set aside on the desk already and waiting for them as soon as they walk in. Here's the table of contents for the first book, which is the master, well, I call it the master book of plant certifications. In this book, we keep our typical submittals, so everything that you submit in your submittal packages. And then we keep all of our rebar mill certs. We keep the aggregate standards and sieve analysis and specific gravity reports. We keep the required material test reports. Optional is we keep our common cut sheets for items that we use or recommend our APA letters and certifications. We also keep our lead submissions in this book, and then we keep our policies, our company policy, disciplinary policy, and an employee chart, all in this one book. It's important. I try to kind of mark out the mandatory items that they're going to want to see during their review. I try to put together some of the items that when the inspector is going through the book, everything that they look for on our certs and data sheets. So a data sheet needs to be directly from the manufacturer. You need to check for the most recent date. It cannot be more than a year old. If the data sheet hasn't been renewed or republished by the manufacturer, it's recommended that you keep a received stamp and just stamp it with the date that you confirmed this is the latest and greatest. And then it also needs to state that it meets the ASTM requirements. So those are the three things that the inspector is going to look for on your data sheets. Sorry, it just jumped. Your rebar mill certs, again, it needs to be from the manufacturer. Your cert tags need to match the rebar that you have in inventory. Your cert needs to state the type and size. It also needs to state where the rebar comes from, as well as meeting the ASTM requirements. With rebar mill certs, you never get the accurate date, when the mill cert was published and when you actually got the rebar, a lot of time lapses. So again, this one actually shows an example where you stamp it with what day you received this mill cert, and the inspector knows that that's going to match what's out in the yard by the date you received it.
That's a common one that comes up where they'll open up a bundle of rebar, may not save the tag off the steel, discard the tag that's outside, and then he wants to see the matching certificate on the bar that you have for the mill cert in the office. And we've had that come up in the past. I'm sure other people have as well, where you got one but the other one, or the mill cert that you have currently was for a brand new bundle that came in, but you're still using up old inventory. So those two don't match, and oftentimes they'll call you out for that. It's easy to explain away, but it's still a sticking point with some inspectors.
Here's a sample of an aggregate cert report. It must be on letterhead from the aggregate company. Again, it can't be more than a year old, so you'll want to make sure it has a current date. It needs to state the location the material comes from, the ASTM C33 requirements, sieve analysis, and a specific gravity report. So these are all things that they're going to look for with all of your aggregates. In your master book, in our master book, we keep a copy of our employee chart. It's just all your personnel and their roles. This is a mandatory item, but so we keep it in two places. We keep it in our master book, and we also keep a copy within our QC manual. Something that we do to kind of keep track of all of our certs is I have a spreadsheet of all of our certifications, when we received them, and then when they're due to be renewed. And I also keep a contact of who or what website to go to retrieve the updated information as needed. I do find, for us in our experience, The ones that are the hardest to get the certs from are usually the aggregate companies. I don't know why, but those are the ones that we got to kind of go back 2 or 3 times and remind them that we need the paperwork. But usually, for the most part, it's pretty quick, and more companies have all this information on their websites, and they keep it updated. So, but yeah, sometimes you have to poke at them to get the information you need before it expires. Something else that could be helpful is keeping in your Outlook calendar or your email calendar reminders of when your certs expire, so that way you can start poking them without seeing your spreadsheet and it pops up in your email. Our second binder that we keep is of all of our certified personnel. So it's a 3-ring binder, and the cover sheet, I keep the list of all of our certified personnel. And then within the book, I keep a copy of all of their certifications, and then a copy of their current continued education log. And this just helps reminder of updating those all in one spot. So you have all of your personnel and all of your CLE logs in one spot. I find the APA website is helpful to track down which of your personnel is due for their to turn in their logs. If you haven't been on the APA website, you go to the personnel certification, search for your APA personnel by entering your plant name, skip over last name and just click off step 3 and click off all of the categories, and then a list of all of the personnel within your plant will generate, and it will tell you when their next log is due to be turned in. So in this particular case, Brian is due 3/31/27. The third one is the QC manual, safety manual, and ASTMs. This binder, we keep all of these in one binder. The QC manual doesn't really get updated very often, other than employee changes or updating your employee charts, and then if you have procedural changes within your plant. One note would be, if you do make changes, keep an last updated note on the cover sheet. That just lets the inspector know it's been updated since the last time they were there, or it hasn't. And then you should keep a copy of all of your relevant ASTM standards that apply to your process and your product. Different plants are going to have different requirements, but you just keep them all in one place.
Hey, Jessica, one of the questions that someone has is the calibration of scales and testing equipment in their first inspection. A guy mentioned that they're weighted cubes to cross-check scale reading. Does anyone know what certification these cubes have or are supposed to have?
Say that one more time.
Can you repeat the question for Brian?
About the weighted cubes to cross-check scale reading. Do you know what certification the cubes have to have or are supposed to have?
We use a independent company that comes. He's certified in calibrating all of the equipment. So there's going to be different requirements for a die scale versus your cement scales or your aggregate scales. A lot of the times they're going to make you load them up to a certain limit within the range of use is oftentimes, but the weights that they're using are all certified calibrated weights. I'm not sure what the cube weight is referring to, but usually, like for a die scale, for instance, you can buy a set of um, gram to ounces brass weights that are all calibrated and certified that they're accurate weights. But usually it's best just to find an independent company that can come and do all of the things from the smallest scale you have to the largest weighing apparatus that you have.
All right. Thank you. We've that's the end of the comments. So thanks.
Our fourth binder is our compressive strength and water absorption test results. We keep all of these in one binder. Every plant is going to be probably different with their production frequency and process. We outsource all of our testing. We make our own cylinders, but we outsource the actual breaking of the cylinders. So we need to track the test reports come in as they should. For us, again, being wet pour, tests need to be performed once a week or every 50 cubic yards. And the test method is ASTM C39, 28-day breaks. One thing to note is that regardless of what your break comes back at, you need to have it on file to show that you tested. So even if it's didn't come out the way that you wanted it to, you still need to have it on file so they can see that you tested that week. So that's it for the binders. Next is you need to show them your process as far as your samples, how you track your samples, what you submitted for samples, and then how you track how you got your color approvals, how you document that. And then they want to see the final step as to how do you distribute the mix design throughout the plant and your QC process of following that mix design. Yeah, so for us, we in-house, we have our transmittal. We also take pictures of the samples, both tagged side and finished side. And then we also log in writing our approvals. And then our mix designs are distributed throughout the plant. Every department, every relevant department has a copy of the mix design as well as a control sample of the approved color and finish. Then the other item that you will need as far as the paperwork side of things is a current record production shop drawing, as well as calculation package if you have one, for them to review. Some of the items that they're going to want to compare to and look at on your shop drawing is the reinforcement location and quantity. They're going to look for that minimum reinforcement coverage is called out on your shop drawing. They're going to look for piece identification and dimensioning. They'll look for finished fascias, any finished fascias that are shown, the weight and quantity of pieces, see that you've detailed the lifting and embeds, you've called out the color and finish properly, project identification. I'm sure there's more, but these are just a few of the major ones that they'll be looking for.
Hey, Jessica, real quick, someone going back a little bit mentioned once a week is defined as production week or 7 days.
It's production week.
Yeah.
For us. It's production week.
Okay.
Yep. The next item and the last of the paperwork items is the plant logs and the record keeping. These ones we actually keep on a clipboard So they're still all in one spot. And we just hand over the clipboard to the inspector when he arrives.
The air meter calibration log, pretty self-explanatory. Calibration must be done every 3 months or if accuracy is in question. The initial pressure needs to be labeled on the air meter gauge itself, either on the back with a sticker or on the front dial under the glass. This came up with our last inspection company. The sticker on the back had worn off or was unreadable due to the number of times that you're testing throughout a week or a month. You got wet hands, those stickers, they just don't hold up. I had the information on this log. He wasn't satisfied with that, and he asked me to label it under the glass on the dial gauge itself, what the initial pressure line is, which wasn't a big deal. I just took a permanent marker, wrote it on there, and that pacified the situation because I got the calibration dates on the paperwork, so he knows the last time it was calibrated and who did it. That took care of that situation. But the stickers on the back, they just don't hold up. Underneath the glass, it seems to be protected. They don't, never fades out or goes away, and everybody can read it. Flow meter calibration. Again, this is just a way of being able to track it, see when the next time it's due. Calibration must be done annually or if accuracy is in question. It's good to check it in 4 or 5 key points across the range of use. So whatever you're going to be weighing up for or calling for gallons of water in your mix design, you want to just kind of check it. If you're going to 5 gallons, you want to check it, at every gallon. You could check it at a half gallon to see, make sure it's accurate, 4.5 gallons, things along that line to make sure that it's going to dispense accurately across the range of use. Slump cone and tamping rod calibration. It's not really calibration as much as it is inspection. Must be done annually or whenever accuracy is in question. You're basically visually and dimensionally inspecting the 2 pieces of equipment to make sure that they stay within the tolerance of the acceptable range. The tamping rod needs to be a round hemispherical tip, needs to be straight, can't be deformed. Your slump cone should be clean on the inside, can't have concrete built up on it, and it needs to be within 1/8 of an inch of the original dimensions. 8-inch at the bottom, 4-inch at the top, and 12 inches overall. Again, this is a pretty straightforward one. I just keep the record of it. It's easy to track that way. The daily aggregate moisture logs, aggregate moisture verification or cook downs, as a lot of people refer to it. It needs to be done needs to be done daily to determine free moisture content of your aggregate in your stockpiles. If you have hydronic probes, it needs to be done every 6 months or whenever accuracy is in question. That's just a simple sheet that I made up just to kind of show a good way of being able to track your materials. Your sands are the ones that are usually the big culprits to adding water to your mix. So those are the ones that most of the inspectors are really looking for, but I checked whatever that we're using. We have hydronic probes, which is nice, makes the process a lot easier, but you still want to just, if something doesn't seem right or the batching water seems off, or your free water content seems off, it's always good to just double check that calibration and just make sure whatever your probes are reading is what you're getting for a result. We only have 1 dispenser here for admixture. We only use 1 admixture. Some companies may use several. Needs to be done annually. If it seems like the weigh-up process isn't accurate, call them out. It's free of charge for them to come out and recalibrate it. It's not a big deal. I will say, double check the dates that they're putting on your paperwork. I've had this come up in the past where the guy put the date that he showed up and the date that the next inspection was due was the same date. He forgot to change it 1 year ahead. That came up with an inspection. I didn't catch it at the date, but that's one of those things to look for. The scaling side of things, like I said before, we use an independent company. We hire them, come out every 6 months. Calibrations must be done every 6 months. Whatever you're using for scaling, whether it's your cook down scale, your die scale, your batch control system, weigh belts, decume, cement hopper, they all need to be calibrated, and you have to have paperwork that shows the weights that they weighed up to throughout the range of use, and the stickers need to be on the equipment. Other than like for your cement hopper, that can be put on your batch control system to say that all of those materials were verified. But you need to have the paperwork that shows those calibrations were done and when the next time that they need to be done. Stud welding bend test log. This is a combination of two things, stud welding and the bend test. If you're doing your own in-house stud welding, you need to keep a log of the data and the frequency of what you've done. If you're using a stud welding machine, that has its own requirements. I weld with a MIG welder because that's what I was certified on. You need to have your AWS certificate on file. That should be in one of these binders as well to say that you're qualified to do that welding for those. If you outsource, you need to have their certificate on file saying that they're a certified welder and that they have, meet the AWS standards to be able to do that welding for you. If you're in my particular situation, where I had mine is a welding cert with a MIG, I have to weld within every 6 months for my cert to stay good. So I keep a log, even if I'm not stud welding on in-bed plates. Whatever welding I do, I keep track of the frequency and what I welded and all the things that went along with that. Thermometer calibration must be done annually. Again, the inspectors want to see, in my particular case, I'm the one that's doing all the calibration work. They want to see who did it, your initials, when it was done. I use 2 thermometers. Pretty sure that's what the standard says. The ice bath method works good. You put some ice in a cup, put some water in with it, stir it around, give it a few minutes, gets down to 32 degrees. You can put the thermometer in, and then if it's at 32 degrees, plus or minus 1 degree, you know your thermometers are good. I use 2 of them. And then after that, I will actually take them and use them and make sure that those 2 thermometers are reading across the range you use in your mix and other things like that. Stick them in a cup of warm water on the upper end of the scale to make sure that they read accurate within each other.
So that kind of wraps up all of the paperwork side of things. Then once your inspector has reviewed all of those and everything's good, then they'll go and begin the visual plant tour.
They're going to look at your setup process. They want to see that the molds are secure to maintain the dimensions within the range of accuracy that you need to hold. They want to make sure that that mold can come apart to strip the product without damaging it. They want to see that the caulking is in good condition, has all the required inserts, mortar slots, etc. Mold has proper amount of release agent. It's not over greased, so it has oil pooled up in the corners. It's dimensionally accurate to what it's labeled, meaning it was set up correctly. They also want to see that the face of that mold or bed can achieve the finish that was approved for that particular job, meaning you can't have big gouges on a light finish and think that that's going to be an acceptable situation. They will call you out on it. Production and pouring process, your rebar placement, quantity and size matches what you have on the shop drawing. Concrete placement, you're not dumping it from a high height and causing segregation or things of that nature. Consolidation methods, whether you use internal vibration or external vibration. The cut ends of the rebar are painted if you're using epoxy or galvanized. I know there's a lot of people that don't use either of those. They're just black steel. We use both epoxy and galvanized here. So the second that rebar is cut to size for a particular job, those ends are painted and allowed to have time to dry before they're being placed into the forms. Forms are struck off clean and level. They're tagged with the identification that matches what the label on the form is. Lifting devices and in-bed placement are accurate to what was drawn. ACI and the testing equipment that goes along with it, whether you're producing cylinders or cubes, they want to see the curing process that you have going on with that, whether you're using a tank or a room. There's all standards that go with that. The labeling of the cylinders and cubes is done correctly in accordance with ACI. And the testing area that you're performing your work on is firm, level, and clean. Your daily quality control procedures demonstrate your daily quality control process throughout your facility, from your production to your yard, how things are being tracked and confirm that they're accurate to what they're supposed to be. Product handling and storage, how it's stripped, where does it cure, how is it moved within the facility, safe working loads, the equipment is adequate to move it, finishing and shipping procedures, final inspection of finished product compared to control samples. The piece identifications are clearly labeled on the stones, in the delivery documentation, where it's going, what's on the truck, how it's palletized. Aggregate storage. This is one that's come up a lot in the past. The old inspectors, one of them in particular, is very particular about how things were stored in your stockpiles. Any kind of cross-contamination from the loading process of your bins, they would jump all over you about it. Make sure your stockpiles are labeled clean, orderly, clean of cross-contamination or debris. No leaves are blowing into your stockpiles and getting put into your mix. Your rebar storage needs to be up off the ground. Can't be in contact with the ground. We use concrete blocks for ours. They need to be tagged with the manufacturer's mill cert, like we went over before. It matches what's in the office. And that the bar is separated by size and type. Again, if you use just black rebar, you're just separating it by size, and that it's clear to indicate which size that you're using. General plant housekeeping, keeping the plant clean, organized. Your doorways aren't blocked up. Your fire extinguishers aren't covered with forms, and you don't have a bunch of debris all over your floor. Yep. The closeout after inspection. Use the closeout as an opportunity to become better. Be open to recommendations from the inspector. Ask, what can you do differently? What can we do better? Is there anything, any areas that we need to improve on? And be sure to implement them, any of the recommendations from the inspector for your next inspection. We always, we're open to this, and that's where a lot of the stuff that we're talking about today came from, was past inspections of recommendations from the inspectors of what they would like to see or how we could improve, or things that we could do differently, and where we could help them for the next time that they show up.
Oh, I think it also goes a long way is that if they do recommend something, when they come back for their next inspection, they can see that we implemented it. We heard them, we listened, and we implemented. And I think that goes a long way. Shows we listened, but it also makes us better.
Yeah, we've certainly grew leaps and bounds through the inspections over the years of how we could improve and get better and become more organized. And a lot of it is just having the information in a bundle. They don't have to keep disrupting the staff and office staff to chase down documentation. It's all in a one-stop shop. Um, they usually done with the paperwork side of things in half hour, 35 minutes usually.
Yep.
And they're ready to tour the facility and watch us pour.
Yeah, I was gonna say the one thing that we probably didn't mention is that they will want to kind of see the process of you actually pouring something. Just to be able to check off all of their items. And again, these are general. There may be more things that we didn't cover here, but this is just an overall basic things that they're going to look for, things that they're going to request.
Every inspection, these are things that come up.
And that's hopefully that's going to help somebody with their next inspection. And we're always happy to help and provide what information we have or anything that we can do to help prepare for your next inspection. Just let us know.
Anybody who wants to have a one-on-one conversation with us through a Zoom meeting, email Jessica or myself, and we can set something up and we can go over anything that you want to talk about more in depth. Hopefully that helps.
And this has been great information. Jessica and Brian, thank you so much. We do have a question here is someone says one thing not mentioned that they got routinely hit on was making sure that lifting capacity on lifts, canes, etc., are clearly marked. Their inspector.
Yes. So your chains should be inspected annually anyways. They should go through a stress test, but your chain provider, depending on who you use, those chains, when they're made, should have a metal ring that's attached to them. You shouldn't have chains in your facility that you're using that don't have a certified calibration rate or a safe working load on them. At least I've never seen them. The chains that we have made for us through BD Chain is the company that we use, but they come pre-certified as to what the safe working load are. And I use that same company to send them out and inspect it to verify that they're still in good service use. And if they're not, we pull them and we purchase new ones and replace those chains.
I did get a request for the PowerPoint, so we do have it in a PDF format. And I am adding that right now to the chat. So that is a PDF of the presentation that Brian and Jessica have done today for us. And I don't think we have any other questions. So we are going to go ahead and close this out. I want to thank you, Brian and Jessica, for taking the time to put this all together and help with the upcoming inspections that I know everyone is looking forward to and is going to be very well prepared now that you've given us all of these tips and tricks that you guys use. So thanks again. I want to thank everyone for participating, and we will see you next time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.